Hey Denchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and welcome to my review of the third studio EP from Aero Chord. This one is called Love and Hate. Before I dig into this EP, I'd like to make a couple very quick announcements. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the lack of content that's been on my channel recently. Ideally, I'd be uploading videos every other day, and now you've probably noticed that I tend to be uploading videos every 3 or even 4 days, which is just sad, but the main issue behind that is that these videos take a long time to record and an even longer time to edit. On top of being a full-time college student, I'm also working nearly 30 hours a week. So sadly, YouTube can't always come first priority, and that's probably why you've seen a lot of reviews that I said I was going to do delayed. I think the temporary solution to this is to make a couple rapid-fire reviews, in other words, to cover 10 albums or so that I missed. But that's not really going to solve things long-term, so I'm looking for a better solution so I can cover things on a more consistent basis. Number 2, I just ordered a new camcorder, which is kind of a big deal if you've been following my channel. I've been basically using this camera since the very beginning in 2010 when I started my channel, and by this one I mean the camera that's filming me right now, right in front of me. It's actually a Canon camera, and this will be my first Canon camera ever, so I'm actually really excited to see how you guys will react to it and how it'll work for me as a YouTuber. Anyway, that's about it, and let's get into the review. Aero Chord is a bit of a different story from a lot of artists that I've reviewed this year, mostly because I don't really remember a time when I didn't like Aero Chord. In fact, the first time I ever heard Aero Chord, which was when he released Surface on Monstercat in 2014, I was just absolutely hooked. And that was at a time in my life when I wasn't really crazy about trap music, so the fact that he was able to pull me into that genre just blew me away. I'm guessing a lot of fans of Aero Chord, and probably a lot of you guys watching this right now, also found out about Aero Chord in the same way, because Surface is one of Monstercat's all-time biggest releases, and by far Aero Chord's biggest release. In fact, right now it's trailing just behind Flight by Tristam and Breakin', which has been Monstercat's top release for a few years now. Then again, Surface is being just trailed by Marshmallows Alone, so that one could very well top that chart in the next year or so. Another thing when it comes to this topic is the amount of respect I have for Aero Chord for kind of sticking to his own style and doing his own thing, other than maybe in a couple cases. Of course, we get Titans, which was more of a mainstream big room festival trap sound. He did that song with Razzie. Even in that case, though, I'm honestly kind of a sucker for it. I played Titans at almost all of my DJ gigs in the past year just because it goes off so well. And then of course there was Psycho, which is probably the best example I have in regards to this. Honestly sounded like some kind of hybrid between Knife Party's Internet Friends and Botneck's Grindhouse, and I'm not really sure how I felt about that. Also, Aero Chord was kind of returning to electro after taking a long hiatus from it with his first EP, Mechanical Mayhem, which was released on Bonerizing Records, and I'm sure a lot of you didn't even know that EP existed prior to this point. Like I was saying, Aero Chord is a very respectable producer in large part because he's stuck to his own style and hasn't really taken orders from anyone else on what to do. I think Love and Hate is a really good example of that. The first thing you're probably going to notice in this EP is that Aero Chord has a new, distinct style. If you're expecting the content on this EP to sound just like Surface or Boundless, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed. It might sound a little sad to say Aero Chord has gone future-based, but that's not entirely true for this EP. In fact, I'd list most of this EP as electronic trap and literal trap in terms of the 4th track on it, Gone, which actually has an MC on it for the first time in Aero Chord history. Although it's interesting because Gone is probably one of the least trappy sounding songs throughout this EP, the greatest 2 of the 5 being the 90s and Wanchu Back. If you pay close attention to the production on this one, you'll definitely understand what I'm talking about. On these 2 tracks and throughout the EP, Aero Chord's kicks are hitting harder. His bass is more pulsating than in the past. And in my opinion, these very strong elements that are a part of this EP actually compete with modern-day hip-hop producers. I'd even argue as much as to say that Aero Chord may have made this EP to capture the attention of hip-hop artists. Especially in songs like Want You Back, I could picture MCs like Travis Scott just getting hip-hop festivals absolutely hyped over the cinematic breaks in this thing. It's just absolutely glorious. I'd probably even like to compare this EP to Flume's Skin, just because Flume had so many hip-hop appearances on that. I feel like Flume did it a little bit more successfully just because he actually got a lot of well-known hip-hop artists on his productions and made that style of production work with those artists. And Aero Chord hasn't completely done that in this EP except on the track Gone, which I already mentioned. The 90s, which is the big future bass song on this EP and arguably one of my favorites, is arguably even bouncy, hopping back and forth between different samples and future bass synths. It even takes a sample from Boundless at one point, which I thought was a pretty rad throwback. There's a little bit of electro house influence throughout this EP as well, primarily on Kids Play. And then the EP closes with what Monstercat probably thought was going to be the best-selling track on this EP. until the end with Fractal and Kayla. You guys might already know that in short term I haven't really loved a lot of Fractal's recent music, but in the past I'd probably list him as one of my all-time favorite melodic dubstep producers. And Kayla at this point is a pretty common vocalist on Monstercat, so this appearance isn't necessarily surprising. You might remember my review of Eminence's Hollow Mind EP on the title track she sang on as well, and I mentioned that her vocals almost sounded like she could make it in a rock band, and I think that definitely returns with this EP, where her singing is actually on the fringes of screaming. Definitely nothing wrong with that though, I love it. And then production-wise, this song comes together very interestingly. You could have told me this track was Aero Chord, you could have told me this track was Aero Chord and I would have no issue believing that, but Fractal doing this style of music is very odd, and I kinda dig it. Of course the bass lines on this thing sound super recent Aero Chord, but the general style of this song is probably something I wouldn't really expect to hear from either artist. I'd even arguably call it minimal hardstyle. Feel free to correct me if I'm totally wrong in the comments. This one has a 4 on the floor kick and is in just the right tempo to be hardstyle, so I'm just going to go ahead and call it minimal hardstyle, or if you want to be really funny with it, soft style. I definitely want Until the End to be big just because it's a decent return from Fractal, but at the same time I know I'm at least going to be a little disappointed with Monstercat 29 just because Wanchu Back isn't going to be on it because it was the pre-order track. Then again, the 90s will be there, and that one was easily one of my favorites, so I'll probably be content. I'm gonna go ahead and toss this EP a decent 7. Like always, I have the Spotify link in the description so you guys can go check it out if you haven't yet, and if you have, make sure to let me know about your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway, I'm Landon Remixes, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you later soon, hopefully with a new camera. I'll see you guys later. Peace.